Now, I've got Andrew Gilligan on the phone, which many viewers of Press TV will know from Forum, the show he presented. But Andrew, of course, was also the principal journalist involved in exposing Tony Blair's falsehoods about the war in Iraq, for which he paid dearly, losing his job with the BBC. But Andrew is a very serious and very senior journalist, and we're very fortunate to have him on the line. Andrew, can you hear me?
Hello, Derek. How are you?
Andrew, I'm very well, and thank you for calling the show. Now, Andrew, you've been following this inquiry and the previous inquiries as well very closely, and perhaps one of our best experts in the country on that. Tell us what your take has been on it so far.
Well, I thought the interrogation of Alastair Campbell was more interesting for what it told us about the people asking the questions than what it told us about Alastair. I mean, Alastair just gave his normal no surrender, everything I did was perfect, the dossier was sensational sort of defence, and I'm not sure a single person in the country believes that. But most interestingly, the members of the committee didn't seem to believe it either. They were quite sceptical in their responses to those assertions by Campbell. They asked the right questions. I thought they asked more probing questions than they'd done in the past. They seem to have the evidence and the documents which prove Campbell's involvement in sexing up the dossier at their fingertips. And they didn't seem to be entirely happy with the answers he was providing. Yeah,
but I mean, you've known Alastair Campbell for a long time, and he was, of course, a very powerful man in 10 Downing Street. You were probably on the receiving end of the odd Campbell tirade, I would expect.
Well, you know, oddly enough, I've never actually even met Alastair Campbell.
Oh, really? That surprised me.
I've spoken to him on the phone.
Yeah.
He has, of course, slagged off many of my stories, but that's done at sort of lobby briefings and things like that. But I don't think he was particularly bothered about my story, actually. I think he just needed something to divert attention from the government's difficulties over the dossier, and he knew that there's nothing the media likes better than the story about the media, so he gave them one, and it did work brilliantly.
But you were pretty much, as far as I was concerned as a politician, the sort of driving force behind the Hutton inquiry and the forcing the government into the open, more than we politicians ever achieved.
That's why I say it only worked in the short term, because in the medium and long term it led to the Hutton inquiry, at which a great deal of evidence was revealed that would never otherwise have been revealed about the government's behaviour. A lot of documents, a lot of witnesses came out into the open, and the country learned that, in fact, my story had been true. And,
yes, you were vindicated by all that, and the dodgy dossier became famous.
I was vindicated, I think, in the eyes of the public. Of course, Lord Hutton didn't agree, but I don't think his verdict had very much credibility for very long.
And Andrew, what do you make of the revelation in Alastair Campbell's evidence about the private letter from Tony Blair to President Bush handed by the ambassador, with nobody in the Foreign Office knowing what was going on, where he was giving this open check to Bush for a coming war in Iraq, long before dodgy dossiers had ever been revealed to Parliament?
Yeah, I think there wasn't a great deal that was actually new in Campbell's evidence. No. But it is clear, increasingly clear, from all the evidence given, and indeed from what Blair himself said to Phone Britain last month, that the decision to go to war on Iraq had been taken long before, and the weapons of mass destruction were merely a pretext for that decision. And Blair said that in terms effectively saying, if we hadn't had weapons of mass destruction, we'd have had to find something else.
They were going to go whatever. Yeah. Well, Andrew, that's quite interesting. I mean, I think not many people are that hopeful a great deal is going to come out of this inquiry, although some of the Foreign Office diplomats have perhaps been a little more open than they were allowed to be before. But is this inquiry actually going to come to anything at all, or is it just another stage on the journey of knowledge?
I don't know. I mean, it's very hard to figure out what these things are doing. I mean, Lord Hutton, you might remember, was a kind of judicial equivalent of the Queen Mother for a while, universally adored among Britain's media classes. The belief was that he would produce a serious report, and of course he didn't. This lot, their questioning hasn't, on the whole, been all that good. They haven't been particularly forensic, but I don't know. I think they could surprise us.
Yeah. Andrew, final point, because I know you've got to go, and I'm grateful for you for coming on the show, but could you just tell, I mean, Gordon Brown was pretty well put in the corner by Alastair Campbell and his evidence, who was keen to tie the former Chancellor to Tony Blair well into the war in Iraq. Were you surprised at Alastair Campbell's determination?
I was a bit surprised, yeah, because I thought Alastair was hoping to play a part in the upcoming election campaign, actually, and that probably won't have done his cause any good. Alastair's relationship with Gordon Brown was complicated, as you know. He got caught up in a lot of the Blair-Brown battles and feuds on the Blair side. but at the same time, Brown has used him a bit for advice and so on. But it seems it's not surprising, of course, that the man who was Chancellor, who was signing the cheques, was heavily involved in the decision. But Brown won't have enjoyed that little piece of Campbell's evidence.
Well, Andrew, I suspect it's not all over yet, but I'm grateful for you coming on the show tonight and sharing with the viewers and listeners your personal expertise, for which we're very, very grateful indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Andrew Gilligan.